If Disney Plus should be reminding us of anything, it's that early episodes of The Simpsons remain the greatest sitcom ever written. But after the critical peak of seasons 4 to 9, the show began to lose a lot of its mainstream appeal. Now that animated shows like South Park and Family Guy are able to surpass them in terms of pushing the envelope, and a lot of Simpsons' core audience began looking elsewhere, they really needed a new spark. Many of the classic writers of the show had departed, and the new writers were introduced, giving the franchise an opportunity to be looked at in a different light. Creative needed to be bold to attempt to get those ratings back to where they once were, and at times, well, they got a little bit too desperate for the numbers. My name is Adam Cleary, and these are The Simpsons' 10 most desperate attempts to boost ratings. Number 10, Brick Like Me, Season 25, Episode 20. The LEGO Simpsons crossover episode begins with Homer saying, "It's not selling out, it's co-branding." And, well, we're not going to get into that. Yes, they're being self-referential, but that doesn't mean it's not a little too close to the truth. The episode, set in a LEGO Springfield, focuses on Homer's relationship with Lisa and how children growing old is what makes time with them so special. He's then imprisoned in a LEGO castle, because of course he's imprisoned in a LEGO castle, before Bart swoops in with some other LEGO and saves the LEGO day. Released several months after the LEGO movie debuted in cinemas, this episode retold pretty much the same story but in a yellow fashion. The cross-promotion between two super brands wasn't the worst episode ever, and in fact it's actually pretty good, but it's definitely more a case of The Simpsons piggybacking on LEGO and tragically not the other way round. Number 9, Couch Gag collaborations, Season 22 onwards. Having to compete with more adult-orientated, meta and political animated shows, The Simpsons needed a new USP. Being a household name, they were easily able to introduce guest animators to create unique opening sequences. Beginning in the third episode of Season 22, Banksy was the first guest artist to make a couch gag, creating an exploitative and corrupt Springfield. Since then, the likes of Ren and Stimpy creator John Crickfalusi, graphic novelist Michael Socha, and filmmaker Guillermo del Toro have all had guest credits for the beloved sofa set piece. While some of these have been absolute marvels and do succeed in making an aspect of The Simpsons different, it is worth noting that the audience isn't watching the show just for the opening sequence. I mean, yeah, alright, some of them are great, but you've still got another 20 minutes plus to get through after that. The fact that it hasn't exactly helped salvage the audience numbers also suggests it's not really worth the effort. Number 9, Treehouse of Horror 26, Season 27, Episode 5. After several failed attempts during the heyday of the series, Sideshow Bob finally managed to kill Bart Simpson. Having cornered him in the music room of his school, Bob shoots Bart with a harpoon through the chest, alluding to Ahab killing the white whale. That's Moby Dick, not Homer. Completing his life's purpose, Bob rejoices in song, posts a photo of himself with Bart's corpse on Fiendbook, wears Bart as a backpack, drinks his brain matter with wine, and uses his mouth as a golf hole. Realizing the pursuit of the boy was all that gave him purpose though, Bob then decides to reanimate him just so he can kill him all over again. This time with a sledgehammer, then a gun, then a lion, a steamroller, a high electricity bill, and finally dissection. In the end, Homer arrives, kills Bob, and sticks his head on a chicken. After a lot of hype over the audience getting to see this story played out to a bloody conclusion, it all just ended in an immensely stupid way. Number 7, Every Man's Dream, Season 27, Episode 1. Haha, yes, the age-old Marge should probably leave Homer episode. This time, a marriage counselor manages to split them up. Homer moves on with his life, meets a woman named Candace, gets drugged by her, eventually decides he likes her, and then, when meeting her family, realizes that Marge is now dating her father. Oops. In the most convoluted closing to an episode ever, Homer then wakes up in the counselor's office to realize it's all been a dream. Then, a moment later, Marge wakes up, realizing the whole thing had been a dream within her dream. So, sort of like Inception then, except not even remotely good. This is supposed to exist in the same universe where Marge almost had an affair with Jacques. Homer almost does the same thing with Mindy, but it's just a cheap attempt to entice some viewers in with marital titillation. While The Simpsons does a great job of discussing issues that many real people face, this one was desperate to say something, but in the end, doesn't say anything at all. Number 6, Who Shot Mr. Burns? Season 6, Episode 25, Season 7, Episode 1. Yeah, probably one of the show's best episodes, and yeah, it was a ratings grab, yeah, Sacred Cow, etc. But in November 1980, over 300 million people tuned into Dallas to find out who shot JR, and 15 years later, The Simpsons just tried to replicate the same storyline. After an episode highlighting his out-of-hand tyranny, Mr. Burns has an off-screen confrontation with someone and ends up getting shot. At the end of the Season 6 finale, regulars of the show were gathered around the unconscious Burns, while Marge says, "Hey,
Everyone is a suspect.
Before the revelation, a spin-off of the popular TV show America's Most Wanted, titled Springfield's Most Wanted, went through suspects and their motivations. Fox was trying to get the whole world interested in this mystery, and it worked. While the premiere episode of season 7 piled up evidence against Homer, it turned out to be Maggie Simpson all along, in a quite iffy turn of events which was divisive for many viewers. Worse still, by the end of season 7, viewership was down over 5 million people from the 18 months prior, meaning it didn't even work. Number 5, Lisa Goes Gaga, Season 23, Episode 22. Bit of a complex one this, but feeling unpopular at school, Lisa starts spreading nice rumours about herself. She's then caught doing it though, and as you might imagine, becomes even more unpopular as a result. But that's alright, because Lady Gaga has superpowers and rushes to Springfield to save the day. What's interesting about this episode is that it's widely regarded as the worst episode in the show's entire history. It lacks any real substance, just crams Gaga into as many scenes as possible, and just shows how the writing team's reliance on celebrities changed so much over the years. Comparisons were immediately and rightly drawn to the show's best ever uses of celebrity cameos, and specifically Dustin Hoffman's uncredited appearance as one of the greatest one-episode characters in its history. Ironically, someone who arrived in the midst of a brilliant storyline and thoroughly understood who Lisa was, making the episode 10 times better for his inclusion. Or to put that another way, the exact opposite of whatever the hell this mess was intended to be. Just goes to show, doesn't it, what a difference 21 years and a whole different batch of writers makes, eh? Number 4, The Simpsons Guy, Family Guy Season 13, Episode 1. The season 13 premiere of Family Guy shows the Griffins taking a trip to Springfield to avoid some negative publicity due to a sexist cartoon made by Peter for the local newspaper. But you probably could have guessed that, you've seen Family Guy. At the beginning of the episode though, the Griffins are watching a crossover show. Chris yells, "Yay! A crossover always brings out the best things in each show. It certainly doesn't smack of desperation. The priorities are always creative and not driven by marketing." So I mean, yeah, I guess at least they were self-aware. Initially, once the Griffins make it to Springfield, the two families become good friends and leads to a bizarre, yet hard to look away admittedly, scene where Peter and Homer erotically wash some cars. Then we get a so long it's just about funny fight scene between the two. In the end, they just confess their mutual respect for one another, and that's about it. While a crossover is always pure fan service, the fact that it was The Simpsons appearing on Family Guy and not Family Guy appearing on The Simpsons just goes to show how much Family Guy had surpassed them in popularity during this time, which is a bit grim. Number 3, Clown in the Dumps, Season 26, Episode 1. While the Family Guy crossover was airing on its network, The Simpsons were doing this on theirs. With audience numbers dwindling, the show decided to kill someone off. Nothing generates hype like a death, after all. In the episode's beginning, Krusty seeks out his father for advice. He says, "To be honest, son, if you want to know my honest opinion of you, you've always been and then dies. That's it. Such an underwhelming scene after so much anticipation, most of the audience assumed they'd just been trolled by the writers. I mean, haha, yes, very funny and all that, but when you're trying to build excitement to rope in a section of viewers who've given up on you because your show is bad and disappointing, maybe don't then just give them something that is both bad and disappointing. Not an expert or anything, but it's just a thought. Number 2, Large Marge, Season 14, Episode 4. Throughout The Simpsons' history, Marge's wholesome character promoted reliability and was ultimately a maternal figure. Then one day they decided to get her tits out as a publicity stunt. Marge Simpson, this woman here, given an accidental boob job, and then, in the final moments of the show, whoop, just gets them out. The premise is that she's in to get liposuction so that she's more appealing to Homer, and there's a mix-up at the clinic. Now, without getting into how hilarious this American sitcom formula of attractive, considerate, intelligent wife marrying bumbling, thoughtless, overweight loser and somehow being presented as the insecure one is, this is still not a good premise. Marge complains of constant back pain and attention from the wrong people, and then later, reluctantly, has to get them out to save the day. While this episode does take a somewhat body-positive stance and highlights how people's perceptions can change based on appearance, it was a bit gross to promote an entire episode of TV around the idea that you might just get to see a little look at a cartoon character's whams. Number 1, There's Something About Marrying, Season 16, Episode 10. Due to Bart and Milhouse pranking a town reviewer, because apparently that's a thing, Springfield receives negative publicity. In an attempt to boost tourism and prove to the rest of the world that the town isn't all that bad, Mayor Quimby agrees to legalize same-sex marriage. And with Reverend Lovejoy being unwilling and or unable to perform the ceremonies, Homer decides to cash in on this opportunity and gets ordained. Feeling that now is the time to make it public, Patty comes out as a lesbian and is planning on marrying her golf partner. Marge isn't exactly on board with the idea, and the tension between the two rises. But it's all okay though, because Marge discovers that Veronica is a man, and for some reason this makes it fine and she's okay with the whole marriage thing now. And what? Granted, this was 2005, and also granted Patty then calls off the wedding because she steadfastly prefers women, and granted, the overall message is pretty good, but it's aging worse every passing year. Not unlike the show itself. So there you have it, those were The Simpsons' 10 most desperate attempts to boost ratings. Read to you by a man who, in spite of all of this, would probably still do a guest spot if they asked. Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. In the meantime though, thank you so much for watching. I have of course been Adam Cleary, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.